after the woman in Treasury, woman in asset management, I should say. By the way, let's start by that. So have you seen any changes in your profession? Because I'm used to see a lot of asset manager male, less women. So I'm pleased to have two ladies today. And it was not planned, but it's just to prove that things are changing, don't you think? Sophie?
Yes, for me, I started in the financial sector in 1994. And I remember I was taking the Jubilee line to go to Canary Wharf at 6:30 in the morning, and I was the only woman there. So I totally understand what you're saying. I think there are more possibilities now. We have a lot of women who like our sector, the financial sector. And, you know, we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of training capabilities and courses that we do. And we're getting more recognized. And it's so nice to see more women here in this panel. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, leading or let's say managing roles. So, and with you, Maud.
So me, I am portfolio manager since 20 years, and I am the head of money market since last year. And I think that to be a woman helps me to have this promotion last year due to the lack of a woman in asset management, in portfolio manager especially.
So today it's an advantage to be a woman, you mean?
I think so, yeah.
Because of parity.
I hope my performance was well
justified. Yeah. No, but it's funny because it's really difficult. So I keep thinking that we should not be considering the sex of the person we are hiring, but the capabilities and the expertise. But what I've also noticed in my career is that usually when we try to select the best person, very often I realized that in my team it was more women than men. So I guess that for Treasury, corporate Treasury and front office activities, women are quite well organized and have a lot of qualities that men do not have always. But interesting to start with that, let's say, brief, let's say, inside remark on women in asset management. So you both work for companies, and by the way, where are we in your journey of potentially merging your assets, because we know that AXA investment manager should merge or be absorbed by BNP. Could you say a word? Or?
Oh, but next month, Sophie and I will be colleagues. Officially. Yeah. It's a good opportunity for us, especially in money market, because BNP is a leader in the money market asset management. So it's a good opportunity for me and for my team. And I hope Sophie and his team will be happy to welcome us in their teams.
Do you plan to merge the funds or to remain separated for a while?
I think these are decisions for 2026.
Okay.
It's a bit too early to talk about these things, but you do a merger because you want to take advantage of economies of scale, efficiency, and lower of cost. So I would assume that this is definitely a decision that we're going to take at some point.
Yeah. Maybe a first question. We always talk about ESG. I have the impression since the new commission and the omnibus I talk about that ESG is not anymore the key focus, but have you seen a change in your customer demand for more, let's say, ESG compliant Article 8 or 9 funds? Is it a trend?
If I may, as far as surveys are concerned, it depends. Some surveys say that, yes, treasurers do not take into account, they don't look for ESG funds as much as in the last 1 or 2 years. My experience with clients is that it's still in their mind. At the end of the day, it depends what your company wants to do. A treasurer will implement in the cash management policies and investments what the company wants to do. So if the company in general wants to promote sustainability considerations, they will do so. What I've seen with clients is that now we have a more meaningful conversations regarding ESG. For example, a lot of clients are worried about greenwashing. So when you talk about ESG labels, sustainability labels, they come and they ask you, what does it mean? What does it mean, for example, best in class? So we have more meaningful conversations. We have clients for the same time horizon, for example, they move out of non-SRI funds and they go into SRI funds. So it does depend. The interest is still there. We hope for more. I think it will come. But again, it depends who you're asking.
Okay. Same for you, or?
Yeah, it's the same. For French treasurer, they want to have the label ESR, and we have a lot of money market fund in France with the label. We have had the new versions at the beginning of this year, the label SRI version 3. I think that every asset manager keep the label, even if we have more constraint, especially on environmental constraint and selectivity. We increase the selectivity to 25 from 20%, but clients don't really challenge our ESG approach and ESG management, to be honest.
It's maybe easier when you invest in ESG products than when you, let's say, borrow money, because what we heard from some members, and borrowing and be ESG compliant to get maybe potentially a better rate, it's interesting, but given the work beside, some corporates are still focusing on the cost, yes, but also the admin burden, and so some still consider that having ESG compliant borrowing is interesting, but a bit the delta is not big enough to justify the extra admin cost for them. So I keep thinking, and I was mentioning commercial paper, why we are not investing more in commercial paper. It's also because I keep thinking that a lot of corporates are still focusing on bank borrowings rather than capital market. And it's a big differences between the US. Another comment. So Amundi, BNY, BNP, probably you, AXA, you have different type of money market funds. And maybe we could explain first, Veronica could do that, but what are the difference between IMFA-rated, AAA rated, and non-rated funds? And why having such a, let's say, large range of products to offer to customers?
That's a very good question, and I want to also add to what Benjamin said earlier about the C-suite, because there are people who don't understand what money market funds are. So if we start from the beginning, is that they're pool investments. The assets stay with a custodian bank. It's not like a deposit that is on the balance sheet. So I think this is very important when you're trying to explain what a money market fund is. And then based on ESMA, you have short-term money market funds and standard funds. Short-term money market funds, the average maturity cannot exceed 120 days. And for standard funds, cannot exceed 6 months. Now, when you go into the short-term money market funds, there you have the constant NAV funds, public debt constant NAV funds, where at least 99.5% has to be invested in government paper, repo collateralized by government paper or cash. Then you have low volatility. So the constant NAV, they offer the possibility to redeem at par. You have the low volatility funds, again, that have constant NAV. And you also have the variable NAV, where your NAV changes according to the mark-to-market. So you have different kind of money market funds. It depends on your investment horizon, for example. It depends on your risk profile, as it was mentioned earlier. You have sort of money market funds that are AAA rated. And here I want to say that money market funds are very well regulated in a sense that you have very strict guidelines. You have strict guidelines as to where you can invest. If they are AAA rated, for example, then Standard & Poor's, for example, or Fitch, they have very strict guidelines about where you can invest. So this is another point why to invest in money market funds. It's not that the portfolio managers can invest in everything that they want to. And then, of course, as an asset manager, you could actually have additional guidelines, because at the end of the day, money market funds, you want to have capital preservation. This is what you're looking for. That's what the clients are looking for, and that's what the portfolio managers are aiming to do. And of course, the liquidity. You have money market funds that offer same-day settlement, for example. And you can use money market funds, for example, for your operational needs, day to day, for your reserve cash management, if you have 6 months, and if you have also your strategic needs, that's more than a year. So that's why you have many different kind of types.
And Patrick mentioned earlier on that it's good to diversify in terms of funds, but is it also advised or advisable to diversify in the range of products, the family of products you will offer to customers?
Yes, and as Sophie mentioned, it depends on the investment horizon and what you need. If you need your cash at any time, or if you can wait 1 month or 2 months, and if you have a longer investment horizon, normally your return will be better. And it's important to diversify in terms of different funds and in terms of asset manager too.
Okay, interesting. So you confirm that you will maintain 2 types of funds, the rated and non-rated funds. Very interesting. When it comes to selecting a fund, what could be the tips for corporates? How to select the best money market funds or asset managers?
I think that treasurers, the first thing they look at is the performance. And after that, you can have the investment process.
But it's always a posteriori, so it's not a guarantee for the future.
No, it's not a guarantee, but they look at the performance before, and they look at versus peers, and there is a ranking between all the different funds and all the asset managers. And I think
you have a ranking like other funds, or is it funds or?
The same funds, but within other asset managers' company.
Based on performances.
Yeah, based on performance. And because you have a liquidity daily access, it's easier to arbitrate the different portfolio and the different asset managers. And the difference between funds will be the internal process, the internal guidelines. Maybe we have not all the same methodology in terms of credit assessment and valuation, and we have not all the same risk appetite when we look at the different asset managers, and even if you look at the ESG filters too.
So
if I may, I think it also comes back to what Patrick said earlier regarding consistency of performance. So when treasurers are looking for money market funds, they need to look at what happened in the previous years. For example, when you had crisis, were you able to get your money back when you wanted it? I think it's very important. It has to do also with size, especially when you have to invest a big amount. You need to invest in a large fund so that you are able to invest.
Yeah,
and get your money
when
back.
you withdraw, just make sure that we are not impacting too much. So is there a minimum size you would recommend? So a lot of our members are using $500 million as a minimum size of the fund. An history, or also, let's say, some years of expertise, so at least a couple of years ideally. So it could be tricky when you have a new fund. But the size, you're right, is quite important because you want to make sure that if we withdraw and if you over-concentrate on one fund, so although if you are diversified at the moment in time, you can be, let's say, pushing some funds in difficult territories, as we saw with the COVID, where a lot of our members were suddenly withdrawing the money from banks and from the funds. And when it comes to the dealing of funds, so we have the impression that still a lot of members are using different ways to select funds or to invest in funds, including proprietary solutions. What are the trends? What are the platforms? Which platforms to be used at the end of the day? Is it for FX? You just suggest to be on all the platforms because we have Mosaic, we have presented here Morgan Money, ICD, and some others. So what are the recommendations from the asset management side?
Well, I don't think that there is a recommendation. I don't think we can make a recommendation like that. But I mean, nowadays you can buy. There are many platforms where you can buy money market funds. You know, most of the asset managers have a platform where you can buy that. Most of the banks, like we do, have a platform where you can buy money market funds. You can trade through Bloomberg, for example, as well. So it does depend. You know, when you're looking for a platform, you have to see the accessibility, where you have many options, because as you said, we need to diversify not only within the fund, but also as a treasury, several funds, the reporting that you get. So there are a lot of considerations, but there are a lot of options.
At AXA IM, we are at the beginning of the process to implement platforms, but when we talk with the French treasurer, they want to accelerate the use of platforms within their treasury.
Yeah, because it's also a question of security and standardization of processes to avoid risk, because sometimes you send, per definition, big amount of money, and so it's better to know.
And cut off are better with via platforms and via your custody.
Interesting. So you would advise to use multi-products platform, because we corporate treasurers prefer to have, let's say, multiple access, ideally to have access to the whole universe of funds, if possible, because what we try to avoid is to avoid having platform. But it reminds me of the discussion when it was a FX platform in the year 2000, and we were starting, by the way, in 2008-10, the first platform, if you remember, My Treasury and ICAP, etc. And so the question from asset manager, on which platform should I be? But at the end of the day, you need to be, like for FX, on all the platforms if you want to serve your customers properly. So
I think usually when you have a banking relationship, normally you use the platform. This is an easy thing to do.
Maybe final comment or tips. You mentioned, and we mentioned that with Benjamin before, communication and education of the C-level. And I remember that we had a lot of discussion with different customers, different members, different colleagues, how to convince. What are the key elements, the key argument we should bring forward to convince the C-level that really it deserves to be explored if you are not yet invested in money market funds, especially with the current environment?
I think that in the negative interest rate, there is a lot of clients who prefer a banking product due to the negative rate. And when the ECB raises the interest rate, we have a lot of treasurers who didn't know really what is the money market fund, and they don't have in mind that we have a regulation in the European Parliament, and it's important to explain this regulation and to explain the transformation of the money market fund, to explain that we have a lot of guidelines in terms of liquidity, in terms of diversification. We have stress tests from ESMA to test the ability of the fund to honor redemption, for example. And it's important to educate our clients about this regulation, and I think that the regulation will continue to progress, to evolve with the market. And since the crisis COVID, we can see that money market funds have been evolved before the regulation. If we look at the percentage of cash, overnight cash, the regulation is at 7.5%. Before the COVID, the average of money market fund was at 10%, and now it's near 20%. So it's important to educate our clients to explain the regulation. And the other thing is to see the regulation in the other side, because the regulation has been put in place from the investment liquidity side, but to as a short-term funding for the European economy. And it's important to have in mind this aspect, especially for commercial paper and for treasurers.
Totally agree. Yeah, the first thing that we should not forget that if we want to develop the capital market, we need to have products like yours, because you are the investors in the product issued by other corporates or government or the institution, but okay, mainly it's a corporate issuer, and we always forget that it's very healthy for the economy. And maybe a final comment, but I guess that Veronica will later comment on that, but I have the impression that money market fund is one of the most regulated sector in finance, and so okay, we can go always a step further, but we as corporate treasurers try to say, okay, up to a certain limit, we are in favor. We are always supporting the Commission initiatives in terms of regulation for having a less systemic, risky market. But up to the limit where we maintain a lot of players, because competition for us is quite important, despite some merger and acquisition, and also because we keep thinking that it's really important to for us to have an ability to choose different products, to have different family of products. Because if we remove the LVNAV, so we'll have maybe 1 or 2 products where we prefer to have a better range of solutions. So it's what we promote, but I'm sure that Veronica could comment on what is going on in the US and in UK. But unfortunately, in Europe, we are also looking at the others, and it could have an impact. So guess that money market fund reform will certainly come back. So thanks a lot. I do propose to close this session. Thanks for your input and the women in asset management. And I do propose to have a 10-minute break before the last 2 sessions. So thank you very much for your attention.